If you guys aren't headbanging to this, I don't know what you're doing. Good morning, y'all. You know, I'm not gonna lie. Did I tell you about my new alarm clock?
No.
I mean, I've had it since Christmas, but like, have I? It's like one of those sunrise ones. Have I told you?
No.
Okay, so get this. Fun little bit of info to start the stream off with. So my favorite thing about this thing is that it's basically supposed to recreate sunlight in the morning. Like, it starts off slow and gradually progresses as you set the timer for it, right? Well, the light alone actually helps out a lot because my window is where the sun rises. So like I should actually be getting sunlight, but because Anna really enjoys her privacy, we always have these dense curtains just closed, you know? I don't really care if somebody wakes up in the morning, looks through my window for some fucking reason and sees me naked in bed, because why are you looking through my window? That sounds like a you problem.
Okay.
You know, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, privacy's nice, so we keep the curtains closed, and I never get the sunlight in the morning.
Also,
well,
you love your girl. Like,
yes. Well, that's why we keep them closed. But weirdly enough, with this clock, as the sun is coming up and everything, like, I now get that sunlight back, and it feels really good. But here's the best part about this clock. It's not the light, and it's not the way that it peacefully wakes you up with the light. It's the almost abrasive ocean sounds that it has, because it doesn't sound like calm water trickling. It sounds like waves crashing, trickling kind of thing. Like, it's somewhere between crashing and trickling, but then you hear a seagull. And you just hear like and you know, because I'm trying to make sure I wake up in the morning, it's some of the loudest seagulls you could wake up to. And then I discovered the other day that they also have dogs barking in it, which set off my dogs.
Are we orange to people, or is this my computer monitor? Do we look really orange to people? This is bugging me.
I look slightly green. If anything, our hair looks vibrant.
So I should probably wear a hat. My hair is extra crazy this morning.
So is mine, dude. I didn't even do my hair. I think I wore a hat yesterday, went to bed, and woke up and came here.
Let's go.
Actually,
dude,
that's a lie. I woke up and played video games. I did a very bad thing today.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. When I wear a hat, it does nothing to suppress my hair.
It just continually comes out.
It does not. No, like I could wear a hat for 12 hours straight, and I take it off, and it's probably sticks up taller than this.
So I took off my hat at the gym yesterday, and I look like a flat-headed version of Carrot Top. Just curly, but somehow flat.
Yeah, see, my hair doesn't get flat. That's crazy. Anyway, we're about to get started. Let's take us to topics.
Cool. What do you guys think? What do you guys think we should talk about? Kind of curious to hear, y'all. Let me see. We've been talking about a lot of gear lately. You know, from the 670 to the LA2A. We also talked about the 1176. What else could we talk about today? What could we do? I guess we could talk about like some of the changing trends. Like there's a current change in, like, I guess you could say, the vocal chain everybody uses. That's a current thing. But I don't necessarily want to be promoting a brand that we don't necessarily actively use, whether we're sponsored or not. Seems kind of oxymoron to do that. You know, something we can talk about is how some of the most influential engineers have the most simplistic setups. Like, I don't know if you saw Andrew Shep's home studio update. He did a studio tour.
Yeah, his is a crazy transformation, because he also went
from like massive studio in the backyard with the Neve console. Yep. And now he just works in a room with acoustic panels propped up against the wall.
You know, he's in the UK as well.
Yeah, he moved completely.
So let's see here. I actually had a couple topics. We're not going to talk about
You know
that.
what's really funny though? He actually brought up in one of his interviews. They're like, so tell us, like, having worked with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica, and everybody, like, do you get like a lot of bands that are running up to you looking to work with you? He's like, no. I'm the guy that lived in his room the entire time, and because of that, nobody knows who I am, and unless they're also an engineer, at which point they're not. Engineers aren't hiring other engineers unless it's to master their song.
We're supposed to do studio etiquette.
Ooh, let's do that. An update on studio etiquette. I like this.
This is from Pokemon Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. OR? AS?
Ruby. Is.
Sapphire. I assume it's Ruby Sapphire, but I don't know what the OR is. OR AS.
Original Ruby and adulterated Sapphire?
Yeah. I don't know if that's it.
I don't think it is.
All right. Anyway, let's get into today's episode.
Let's do it.
Test. We're gonna probably turn this bolt down a touch.
Butt, poop. Yeah. There we go.
Test. I'm still
Adequate levels.
okay. Turn that down because that music is distracting me. Okay, here it is. Might as well do this too. Hold on. Give me a second. A live stream from the podcast one.
You're so outlandish, DK. How dare you do that? We all know we should be streaming from Pikachu's account.
No, but I usually stream from my personal one.
How dare you, DK? Citizen Arya, do you have the Citizen app? If you do, I'm sorry. You must get a lot of notifications.
Hello. All right, cool. Let's get right into it. All right, let's start recording. I'm gonna start recording the live stream as well. This live stream is recording. Hello and welcome back to the Mix of Music Podcast. I'm your host DK, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host Lorenzo Lou.
Am I Italian now?
You got
If
any
so, I
family named Lorenzo or anything?
Don't think so.
All right, that's your new name, Lorenzo. We're just gonna go with that. That's a pretty like old name, I feel like. Anyway,
As long as I'm not like, I don't know, Lucius.
we've done Lucky Lou. Let's see what
We've
else.
done Luscious Lou.
Luscious Lou.
At which point Lucius
That's like
would
one of
make
your
sense.
personal favorite ones, right?
Actually, no. It's Lou, wielder of swords, lord of the board.
Oh, there you go. That's a classic
Yeah.
one.
And
then-
now I'm TikTok famous for loofs.
There you go. Loofs. And then yeah, I'm thinking we should come up with like a nickname that has to do with today's episode.
How about
Let's get your ass into gear, Lou.
liability Lou?
Liability Lou. I like that one.
I mean, because we're all a liability to ourselves without this fundamental basic bits of info.
Yeah, there you go. And we want to save your career, and we want to help you build your career. We don't want you to look like, one, we don't want you to look like a loser. Two,
Yeah.
we don't want you to get kicked out. And three, we want you to be able to have the proper etiquette in the studio. So today we are doing a V2 version of studio etiquette and what to expect in a commercial location. And we're going to talk about the differences between private studio location etiquette as well as commercial studio location etiquette, and for the purpose of trying to get you a job and get ready for the job. Also, we force our interns to listen to these episodes. And so, honestly, we're going to be speaking on behalf of our own team as well and try to create a culture in the Mix Studios, our studios here in Los Angeles. And we're going to continue to make this mandatory listening for all of our new interns. So
if you're listening, congrats, you're hired.
Yeah. What? Everybody that's listening.
We have an entire podcast listening community that's now officially hired. So
there you go.
Email us, let us know what your schedule is, and we'll email you, I don't know, a puzzle.
So I think, yeah, there you go. So I think we should talk about a few basic ones first, just kind of go through the list. And then we're going to talk about some of the more nuanced ones. But first, the biggest one and the biggest no-no is talking too much.
Yeah.
And I think the even bigger no-no is actually self-promotion, but we're just going to start with talking too damn much.
Which usually leads into self-promotion.
Yeah, so there is a time and a place when interns are welcome to ask questions and to potentially participate. That is not the default.
Yeah, it's
the default is shut up because you're not. Yeah,
the
default is you're not invited. You're not invited. You're barely allowed to be there. So there's no client that ever says, "Oh, by the way, can you just have an intern there to bother us during our session?"
Yeah, ask questions while we're trying to work and focus on what we're supposed to be doing here.
So and a lot of the times interns break this rule on good intentions.
Yeah, it's usually not out of malintent or any kind of, I guess, willful ignorance, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so this is where, I mean, there's degrees of this too. Like some interns are just ridiculous, but we're keeping it simple here. At the end of the day, in a commercial location, regardless of whether or not you know a lot of what's happening, it's already a pretty stressful environment. Nobody knows who you are, so they're kind of uncomfortable with you just sitting around there watching anyway. And then taking the next step to talk or even ask questions or even throw in your own input, which is the worst that you can do, is heavily frowned upon, could be a firing offense if you keep doing it.
To be honest, I mean, think about how artists in general are typically pretty self-conscious already. You know, having a new face walk into the room, assuming that they can just outright sit in on the first session and things of that nature is a little intimidating. You know, it's not your comfort zone. And this whole issue really kind of surrounds the idea that, you know, they're there to do their job. They're not in their own home. They don't feel like they're in their own element unless they come there that often. At which point, then, yeah, they might invite you into the room later once they've become more, you know, acclimated to the location and how we work as a studio. But this is, just like DK said, it's not the default at any studio. We know of studios where interns are only allowed to sit in the lobby, you know, by the front desk. And then they can only go into the studio areas if they're asked of something, to clean something, to take out the trash or something. But, you know, even then, some assistant engineers, like I remember, you know, doing sessions at Paramount, at Record Plant and everything, not even the assistants are allowed in the studio half the time.
Yeah, it is crazy. Some studios are extremely strict and don't even allow you into the room. Us in the Mix Studios, we try our very best to make sure that we ask every client if they would be okay with someone joining the room, but that's under the assumption that you won't be asking questions. You can write them down. We always recommend interns to write down the questions that they have and ask them at the end, because there is going to be an opportunity for you to learn. Yeah. And that being said, when Lou is mixing and mastering, or when I'm mixing and mastering or whatever, and you want to come through and shadow us, then typically questions are allowed and encouraged. But even then, writing all of your questions in the notebook, and then asking them all when I turn around or when Lou turns around and starts talking is a much better way of doing it, because what it does is it allows us a moment to actually focus on the song and actually do what we're trying to do, and thus you can actually see us kind of like forget that pressure, kind of focus in. You want us to focus in. Yeah. And that's kind of when we start to do things that I'm sure you'll have questions about. So write down the questions, let us focus in, maybe, you know, at least like 5 to 15 minutes at a time. Let us like kind of focus in. And then at the same time, I personally don't hate when people distract me after about 20 minutes or so, because it allows
It's
me
an
a little
ear break.
Yeah.
But the downside is that in a commercial location, that's not really the case. Even though, engineers typically want an ear break, not the artist
Definitely
or
not,
the
yeah.
producer, so the funny thing is, if you start asking too many questions and it starts getting in the way, the one thing I tell everybody, because this is an honest truth, and DK, I think you've seen enough now to really see what I meant by this. Like, the artist will never tell you to leave. They just won't come back, or they'll never hire you again. That's pretty much it. Artists communicate without communication. It's kind of a whole vibe thing that you hear about in LA all the time. Oh, the vibe was off in that location. It was really weird. People were asking a lot of questions. Like, I felt like I couldn't get into my groove, this and that. Like, and then like once we were in the groove and I just wanted to listen back, they started asking questions, was like psyching me out. It's like, I've seen where people just sit quietly in a corner or are asked to leave just because it's just a weird presence. So asking questions while they're working and distracting, even if you think it's an open opportunity, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. You just have to learn to read the room. But that's usually where talking too much is the issue, because if you're talking too much, you obviously can't read the room.
Yeah, this is true. I do feel like this is really unfortunate, and this is not the case for most sessions, but there are some sessions and some artists, both local and not local, that are the most sensitive bitches I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh my God.
And if you say anything that they don't like or anything like that, it'll ruin the entire 12-hour sessions. We've both had situations where like an artist just left.
Yeah.
Because they just weren't feeling it or whatever.
Oh yeah, even if you ask the right question the wrong way, it could be that. I had a really big artist, like I won't name them, but like I think I had told you about this.
Yeah,
DK.
we've talked about it.
Yeah,
before,
I literally just asked for a comparative measure, like, hey, do you want this kind of reverb like this artist or this kind of reverb like this artist? And they walked out, and the management called me to let me know I was fired. They didn't tell me. The management called me.
Yeah, so you got to be really careful with some of this stuff. It can cost you opportunity. At the end of the day, I remember like Leslie Brathwaite would tell us crazy stories about people, and he would emphasize the importance of engineers just needing to keep their cool. Sometimes you're a punching bag. That's part of the job. And just stick around and you'll have opportunities. Most of the time, these super... These sensitive artists, these neurotic artists are oftentimes, they don't mean anything by it.
Yeah.
They just seem really aggressive at the moment, but if you stick in the chair, they'll grow a sense of respect for you. So it's also like a level of the way people kind of try to push boundaries to see if you're someone that they're cool with. They'll like push your boundaries to see if you end up hating them. And if you end up hating them, it's like, well, they didn't want you anyway. They were trying to push your boundaries. So if you stick around in the chair, if you have the patience to continue to do so, also at the same time, don't like, it's not worth keeping a client for personal, like, don't actually stay in the chair if you hate it genuinely.
Yeah, if you genuinely want to be there because you're like, this is a great opportunity and I know it, and if I work hard and I really push through this, like, great opportunities are going to come by. That's great, but also realize that that's not always the situation, which is also just something for your back pocket. You don't pull that card out every opportunity and say, well, it might not lead to anything, because I hate to say it, but recently I picked up a project that I quoted thinking I wasn't going to get it, and I got it, and I was floored by getting it because I thought I was not necessarily underqualified, but of all the people in LA that are significantly more qualified than I am, I ended up landing it. Those are rare situations. So are the ability to be in the room. And the last thing you want to do is ruin the opportunity by, treating it as if it's not a good opportunity. You know?
I think there's a gentle balance here. One, you shouldn't ever,
disregard
do things
the artist.
You should take care of yourself. Personal mental health is number one. But at the same time, you know how to make this is a quote. I forgot. I'm going to butcher the quote, but the idea is like, the only way that you can ever learn how to get paid more is by being able to take on more shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
it's
it's absolutely true. I'm shitting bricks every time my pay grade goes up.
Wait, hold on. I think that's a different phrase.
No.
Bricks means you're
No,
scared.
as in, yeah.
Hey, no,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
talking about like the more shit you can eat, the more.
No, totally. But you continue to push yourself to
Yeah,
see how far you can actually go. The further you're able to go,
I think that
your
thing
pay
was wrong
scale
too.
goes up.
Not eat, take.
Yeah.
The more
how
shit
much
you can
shit,
take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your
But, I mean-
income is directly correlated to the amount of shit that you can take. Something
And
like
eat
that.
slightly. I mean, you got to take some Tapatio with you.
This is getting. Anyway, so at the same time, like if I know it's uncomfortable, it's never comfortable when you're being yelled at by anybody. But if you're able to stay patient and not fight back and allow them to kind of do their thing, there's been horror stories of artists where they have to do that every single session. They have to cause drama every single session just to get in the zone to write.
Yeah.
Someone that we all love, a very, very famous person.
Needs drama.
She had to do that every single session, and I love her records, and some of her records are the most like heart-wrenching records ever. Some creatives have to get the point; they have to get in the zone, and sometimes the way that people get into the zone is very unorthodox and is not very common. So just be aware of all that stuff. But at the end of the day, again, as an intern. Do not talk. Do not participate. Do not ask questions. You're not invited to be there. Please
You're not
remember,
expected to be there.
This sounds really bad when I say it, but I kind of want to put things into perspective. Like, interns are very important to the studio.
Yeah.
Incredibly important for the help, for the cleanliness, for the business, for personal growth. Being an intern is very, very important.
Oh, yeah.
Especially as college education value goes down, practical experience value goes up.
Yep.
And honestly speaking, interning is a really, really great opportunity to have practical experience and mentorships. That being said, interns need to remember their place. And this is something that is easily forgotten, especially among interns that we talk to about this. Like we say, we tell them all of this and we try to say it kindly. So I'm going to say it not kindly and just extremely directly here. Interns oftentimes and very quickly, very easily forget their place, which is basically the level above scum. And here's the thing. The fact of the matter is we can throw rocks. I can throw a rock out the door and probably find someone, and it'll hit someone that wants to be an intern at a recording studio. Being an intern working at a recording studio is really cool. It's really fun. It's one of the only places in the industry to get an opportunity to grow your career commercially speaking.
Yep.
That's not on your own effort, meaning that you don't have to run your own ads. You don't have to build your own business. You can just work under someone else. So it's one of the easiest ways to do so. At the same time, people keep forgetting, so this is it. Like that, this is one of the biggest opportunities. I do think that a lot of times people just kind of forget that and they kind of throw their opportunity out by acting a fool and getting entitled. Far too often these interns get entitled and start acting like they run the place. We've had to fire an intern over the last 6 months because they were trying to control other interns and like play power moves and try to use superiority to force the other interns to do things, which is just absolutely crazy to me. And these things happen. We've had also interns that started acting like they own the place and started treating clients like shit. And now, granted, these are mostly on an individual level. This is not like
this is not a general thing. It's just that, once you start getting confident, this is the biggest mistake I see happen. And I think you'd agree with this because I bring it up all the time. Comfortability is the number one reason people fuck up. The moment you get comfortable, whether you're really good at your job or whether you really got, to know somebody, your ability to stay comfortable with that person should really revolve around the idea that you continue to push together as a unit versus, I can relax on certain factors, because that's where everything starts going haywire. And as an intern, that basically means even if you are pushing well and we have been considering you for a position, that doesn't mean that gives you any leverage over anybody else or your position that you're currently in. If you're still an intern, you're still expected to act like an intern. If you're a runner, you're expected to act like a runner. But if you want to be able to move up, and you're already comfortable changing the way you act and move in an intern position, why would we give you a higher position?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that, people need to remember their place, so to speak, but rather acknowledge where you are and the fact that you still have a lot more to go. DK and I have
remember your place and acknowledge where you are.
Yeah.
synonyms, basically. This is
Yeah. Like, I've been doing this 13 years, and I'm finally in a position where I can either take work or leave work. It doesn't necessarily extremely affect me one way or the other, not because, oh, I'm cool or, oh, I have credits. No, fuck that. Credits only open the door, but they also won't keep me through that door. I still have to work really hard, which means I have to watch who is around me. If you think about that, that means I can't just take anybody into the room with me with certain clients, because certain clients expect me to work in a certain fashion. If you want to be one of the people in the room around me when I bring these said types of clients, then you need to be able to be held up to a certain standard. And if you're starting to get comfortable and relaxing those standards, then you won't be invited in that room.
So before we get into specifically celebrities, which I know you have awesome training that we've done in the studio that you've continued to do. And before we get into that, I want to quickly answer a question. This is from someone live on Instagram that asks, how common are unpaid internships these days? And I want to go over this. And I kind of want to talk about the reality, the harsh reality with this sort of stuff. Number one, it is not the goal of any studio to get free labor. Free labor is not the goal. It's just the unfortunate thing that we have to do in order to keep things running. So
and it's also not the most cost effective because it's not time effective.
Yeah. Studios would rather pay people for their time, because when we pay people, we get better results.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When we lowball, and this is not just for internships in studio, this is beyond.
Life.
This is life. If you get the cheap option, if you pay someone for a service and you pay them very little, just expect to be patient with them, because they will either be slow or unreliable. And that's just part of it, because you're not paying them that much. So we want to get to the point where we pay people. So it is not our goal to do free things and keep it free, but it's also unscalable to offer paid positions and expect, first off, be able to accept as many interns that wants to come in, but as well as expect the amount of help that we need. So it's just one of those things that's unfortunate. There are a lot of paid internship positions, but typically not in music recording studios. There are paid
post-production.
Yeah, in post-production, at Warner Brothers studios, maybe, at some studios, maybe, but even at very big Grammy-winning recording studios where they have big artists, let's say if you want to intern with Manny Marroquin, right?
Yeah,
at his
that's a
studio,
hard list.
at La Fabrique, or not La Fabrique, Larrabee, there it is. At Larrabee, you're going to be working for free for potentially years before you get into a minimum to a slightly above minimum wage assistant position. Now, here's the deal. The reason why it's free is, one, you can quit anytime. You can quit anytime. And I recommend, if it is really hurting you, or if you find and value that staying there is not helping you in the long run, we recommend you quit.
Yeah.
And you force the companies and these corporations, not corporations, but these businesses to either level up how much value they give to their internships and to level up their programs, or you just help yourself. Either way, quitting is not a bad thing, right? So, and it'll kind of, if they needed you, if you built leverage by giving so much value that they now need you, if you quit, then they might say, hey, actually, we need you. Can you stay on longer? We'll start paying you now, actually. Right? It's like quitting your internet service. They'll be like, wait, we'll actually give you a discount if you stay.
Yeah.
So just to be fair, at the same time, these music studios, which are very popular to have internships in, have all the leverage. They have the jobs that you want. They have the clout that you want. They have the gold records and platinum records that you want. They have the Grammy recognition that you want. They have everything you want, including a job that they don't need to give you.
Yep.
They have it all. And there's honestly nowhere else to get that sort of work.
Yeah.
That sort of credibility. And it has to be given to you. You have to realize that, it's low key has to be given to you. This clout has to be given to you. And the only way that you can earn the respect is to be given that opportunity is by proving your worth. And I will tell you right now, as a studio owner that has been accepting clients or accepting interns of various types for almost a decade, 98% of interns are not as good as, one, they intend to be, or two, they think they are.
Oh my God, is this okay? Actually, can I slightly go into that because there's a big etiquette call on this one that is a first minute in the conversation tell.
Oh yeah, we can talk about red flags.
I've had 3 that I definitely need to say right out the gate.
Well, hold on. Before you say this, I want to emphasize the reason why we're talking about this is because when it comes to interpersonal relationships, how you talk about others, how you talk about yourself, how you interact and keep conversations going is one of the most important aspects of the job.
Oh yeah.
How you interact with clients.
And how clients are going to perceive that communication level of yours.
So honestly, for you to not be a dick is one of the biggest assets that you can have going into the studio.
Which is one of the 3 for me.
So let's talk about this. This is why we're talking about this. Here's some examples of red flags where I'm going to say, we're going to call you out and say, this is a personality flaw that you need to fix even if you don't decide to intern at a studio.
Even if you don't think you have it.
Yeah.
Here's the first thing. It's skill qualifications, but you've qualified yourself for. What I mean by this is this. I'm sure all of us have met somebody who used their equipment as a point of leverage in their skill set. Oh, I own XYZ. Like, I know what I'm doing. I have this at home. I have that at home. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody literally gives a shit in this industry. We all use different gear. Not one pro engineer uses the same setup as the other pro engineer. Maybe their assistant uses the same thing, and that's their assistant's clout. Maybe. But do not show up to an internship, to an interview, saying you know XYZ because you own XYZ and you use it at home, and then walk into the room spewing shit that can be called out.
Yeah.
You want to know how you don't qualify for the internship at that point? It's the fact that you are not a teachable person. You're too prideful.
Yeah.
You're too prideful, and at that point, you won't move up.
Now, we're going to continue this list, but I also want to acknowledge that we're putting risk here, that we're starting to look like two young dudes that own studios that just hate on interns. This is not the case. The point of this episode, the point of Lou talking to you about this is the point to give you the best opportunity to perform best at the studio. We're not complaining. We're not ranting. We're giving you the tools to self-evaluate, to learn, and to grow and blossom your own career. Because honestly, even us, we need solid interns.
Like, the funny thing is, we talk about wanting people not necessarily that are teachable because we want goo. We don't want things that we can mold into whatever we want. We want you to become who your best version of you can be. But
we want to give you opportunities.
Yeah,
we literally have to, like, artists come to us and be like, hey, we need an engineer for this session.
And I have to call 10 people a day trying to find one engineer.
And then we oftentimes end up calling someone that's not interning at the studio because you know, various issues.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, the reason this is such a big deal to me is because if you intern for the studio, you probably already know this, but I offer about 7 to 8 hours a week of free lessons. I charge $100 an hour for a lesson, and yet I give away 8 hours roughly a week. And only recently did it start getting used by some of the newer interns, yet we've had interns who have been with us for so long that don't actually use this time, which it's okay. If you don't feel like you need the time, that's totally fine. But imagine having somebody who claims to already know XYZ information and is just an unteachable person. It'd be a waste of an hour lesson. It'd be a waste of resources, and I want to give everything that I can possibly give to somebody. But I can't give it to somebody who already believes they're far ahead of everybody else when you can tell that they are definitely not.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. So teachability is a big one, and it's pretty obvious. And this is typically not something that comes from... This is typically a personality trait.
Yeah.
It is not people that...
In general, it's usually individuals.
And the reason why this is a big red flag for us is because if you're unable to accept that because becoming an intern is quite a humbling move. You're basically acknowledging that I'm here to learn, and I'm acknowledging that there's something that I want from this situation, from the studio, the clout or the money or the job or the opportunity, and I'm lowering my my potential value. Like becoming an intern is a very humbling thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to be an intern but not willing to give up that sense of humility, or like you're not willing to become humble or show that you're still here to learn, that's a big personality flaw. And beyond the studio, that's something that people need to fix.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Some people already know this, but I'm definitely into like Pokemon cards and just Pokemon in general since I was a kid.
That's an understatement of the decade.
Yeah, seriously. Considering our earlier conversation of like, I'm going to go buy this card. But, the funny thing is, I think I told you, DK, I actually went to my local card shop that's existed for like 30 years in E-Rock. And I told them like, hey, I come from the studio world where internships are a thing. I just wanted to know, I want to learn more about this side of the industry and how it works. Is there any times that I could maybe come in and like help you out for free? Like, I just want to learn how the inventory works, how change orders go, and like how to work with distributors. This is something I'm definitely interested in. I totally understand that you guys probably already have staff, but if you ever need an extra hand, I'd love to be here. And he said, yeah. And so I've been learning a lot from him and learning about like how the grading system works and all that. And the reason this bit of information is important is because I already have a successful career, and I say successful in the sense of like I can at least pay my bills. That's the number one challenge in music, paying your own bills with music.
Yeah.
But, if I wanted to do well in other industries, I'm going to approach it the same exact way. There's got to be a sense of teachability, a humility behind it. If there isn't, then why would they want you around if you're just going to be a know-it-all?
That's true. Yeah, so that's true. And I want to be clear, what's another red flag as well?
Another one, I would
Complaining?
say it's not necessarily complaining only, but I guess complaining for the wrong reason. For instance, like, we understand that nobody wants to do the late nights. We understand that not everybody wants to have a position where their main purpose is to clean and maintain a location. We understand that everybody wants more time in the room when clients are there because that's how they'll learn practicality more. Those are honestly, to me, kind of justifiable complaints, but they're not things you voice all the time. If you're just complaining about that all the time, then all we hear you ever do is complain. But if you were to communicate in a way where it's like, hey, I'm kind of wondering if there's an opportunity for this. I feel like I could be a little more effective if this opportunity was there. And if it's something we haven't thought about, then great. But if you just come at it as like, I don't have enough time for this, then it comes off as complaining. I think complaining in the wrong way. Approaching the conversation is a little bit delicate depending what you're trying to say, right? Like if I said, hey, I want to be around DK more often, but he doesn't really have that many offers or hours, or there's always somebody in front of me. Instead of complaining, saying like, oh, DK never has time for me, why not come up with a solution and pitch a solution? Maybe we do a wait list. Maybe we put, oh, this person's on next. Okay, can you make it during these hours? There's always a solution to any problem. But if all we ever hear you do is complain, that means you're not a problem solver. And the engineer's job is, number one, to be a problem solver.
Yeah, this is interesting. Complaining is a big red flag. And this is another personality flaw. Typically, people that complain, and this is just generalization, so it's not true for everybody here. But these are just generalization. People that complain are typically really soft and are unable to do difficult things. People that complain, we don't, as a studio, we typically don't bother to give them opportunities because if they were given the opportunities, they're not going to stop complaining. And the fact of the matter is, the more opportunities you get, your life does not get more easy.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the
If
quote
anything,
that I
it gets
butchered
harder.
earlier. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Imagine you working with Ariana Grande next week. Do you think that your job gets easier?
Hell no.
If you're complaining at the easiest level, which is just taking out the trash and vacuuming, there's no way in hell that you're ever going to be able to endure the flames of working with Ariana Grande.
The funny thing is, like, DK, tell me if you've experienced this as well. People who are looking for opportunity and are having a harder time to find this opportunity tend to complain more than those who are actually in the trenches, going through it and taking shit all day long and don't seem to complain.
Yes.
And it's funny because it's not to say don't complain. It's to say that some people just know how to look at the situation and say, look, part of this job is very hard to get into, and you have to kind of pay your dues through the way.
Amen.
But nobody is going to hire the person that's not a good hang, which we've talked about before. And you have to kind of learn to be the person in the room that can read the room. But if you're in the room just bringing up tension all the time and never seem to be the one, solving the issue or relieving that tension, they're probably not going to ask for you back anyway. So complaining is one of those traits that at an internship level, it's not necessarily that it's bad, but instead of complaining, maybe be a problem solver and pitch solutions.
There you go.
Everybody that we've ever promoted, I think we can agree, has been somebody who's pitched solutions versus communicated complaints.
That's a good practical way of looking at things.
Yeah, Machi is a great example of this, actually, from Home Studio Heroes. He talked about how, when he first started his internship, we didn't have necessarily the greatest systems for onboarding and everything for the internship, and he helped alongside with Matt to kind of develop and refine some of the onboarding process, and it's never been easier. I'm not going to lie, hours of onboarding later, it's still onboarding, it's still hours worth of work, but it's significantly smoother and much more clear for every intern that walks through the door. He actually helped the studio by, instead of complaining, communicating solutions. And because of that, we recognized that and offered opportunity to him.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, like a personality thing as well. Yeah. This is something where, as an artist, it's pretty normal to have broken personalities, to be pretty neurotic. As someone that is on the business end of things, as an engineer, even as a producer, there is no leeway for neuroticism. There is no leeway for being unable to take shit.
Yeah.
And that's the facts. You're not the artist. You're not the one that is being paid to be. Well, you are being creative. You are being paid to be creative, but it's in a different.
You're being paid to execute, creatively speaking, versus
their ideas.
Exactly.
So
you are a service provider at the end of the day.
Amen. Yeah, the artist. Yeah, so you are a service provider. Please remember that. And this is a big deal. This is something that should be pretty common sense. But the reason why we're having to do this episode is because even after talking about this and even having done an episode about this before, these things continue to still pop up, not just on our radars, but on other studios as well.
You wouldn't believe how many meet and greets me and DK actually go to, whether we intend to look for these meet and greets. We just kind of get invited sometimes. And, a common thing between a lot of higher studios and ours is that they're having a harder time with finding qualified engineers and things of that nature. Not necessarily because nobody seems to be teaching anybody, but a lot of it is because it's not necessarily easy to find people that you would keep. What's the old saying? The ones you want to keep leave, and the ones you want to leave you can't get rid of.
No, I'm totally confident. At our studio, we
don't want anybody to leave. Let's be honest. We actually really like our team to the point where we actually make a point to do community events because we want to have fun too.
Yeah, I'm going to say this out loud publicly as well. I really firmly believe we have the best studio internship program in California.
I do too. I've been through a few of them, and a lot of our interns have been through a few of them. And the one thing I'm really proud to say is that everybody seems to not only enjoy ours, but they progress through ours significantly faster.
And now let's do a little segment about studios. If you're looking at interns or wanting to get interns, and if you're having a trouble keeping interns or keeping help and you need this is why. And we're going to kind of do the pushback along with this. This is actually a great way we can kind of end this episode out, is talk about this. But first, before we get into this topic, we want to talk about our sponsors, the Mix and Music Podcast. If you're interested in listening to 2 extra exclusive hidden episodes every single week that are all about technical tips.
They're so good.
100% technical. Really about how to improve your mixing, your recording, your mastering, your productions, your songwriting. Go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. One more time, that's mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. And for $4 a month or $40 a year, you can get access to the entire library that we've been doing, plus 2 new additional exclusive episodes every single week.
Oh, yeah.
So you expand the episode count significantly by just getting the exclusive episodes, and you can binge them all, and then you can quit. You can just cancel your subscription. Don't. You didn't hear that from me, but but for real though, there's tons of exclusive content that is actually fantastic and very technical.
Braden's honestly a great guy. He actually is very eloquent with what he's saying versus. Unfortunately, I butcher it in comparison to that guy.
Yeah, so well, he's really good.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, we will also be doing another Mixing Music Podcast get together hangout at NAMM.
Oh, that's right.
This coming year. Follow the Mixing Music Podcast Instagram page if you haven't already. It is at Mixing Music Podcast. We'll make an announcement there. Or join our Discord. If you are planning on going to NAMM, or if you haven't bought your tickets, and this is the reason why you want to get some tickets, come meet Lou and I in person. We're going to probably do for like an hour, just like a small little meet and greet, probably by the Antares booth, by the Auto-Tune booth.
Oh, man, I love Antares,
yeah, we love them a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe by the Loudon booth. We don't know. We'll announce
we'll see if, does Loudon have a booth? Is this official?
Location TBD.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to do something.
If they do have a booth, you'll find me at the Loudon booth.
Find us on Instagram or join the Discord. We'll make an announcement. We'll see you at NAMM. But on that note, let's go back to the studios. Now, here's the thing. If you're a studio, or if you're a studio owner or manager, or if you're just an engineer that's looking to get some interns, I'm gonna talk to you about something right now. At the end of the day, and this is something that's important for anybody that's looking to get an internship or is currently in an internship, at the end of the day, the studio's only leverage is the education that they can give you, the clout that they have, the potential opportunity that they have. As a studio, if you don't have the opportunity to give clout, if you don't have opportunities to give them work or hope of work in the future, if you don't have a reason, and by clout I mean like give them credits or a name, right? So they can find their own work. If you don't give them opportunities to learn, if you miss those 3 boxes, then that's why nobody is staying.
Yeah.
And that is why, if none of those boxes exist, I would recommend not continuing to intern for that studio. As much as I love when interns come work with us, I also recommend that everybody kind of applies for that really big studio internship.
Yeah.
And if they get denied, then come hang out with us. Because it is much harder work, and our studio is much more fun, but there's a lot more opportunity and clout that a bigger studio can give you than us. Where we compensate is we do have opportunity, obviously. We have some opportunity, and we do have some clout there, or some recognition, notoriety, other synonyms. But most importantly, we focus a lot on free and quality information, on the education side of it.
Yeah, we are not YouTube University. We are literally come sit down, meet me during my office hours, literally 4 hours a day, 2 days a week. Whatever you want to learn, I'm happy to teach.
And we're going to use our studio as an example to teach a concept here. But because I think we do a phenomenal job. This is where we far exceed other studios, and the reason why we're able to play the hard game in the industry and continue to have awesome clients or awesome interns stick around as well is because of our learning experience in the mixed studios.
Yeah.
One of the things that we always talk about is a safe place for making mistakes.
Yep.
We don't care about you making mistakes. We do if you repeat mistakes, but that's fine as long as you're able to correct, to apologize, to correct, recognize you're wrong, and to never make that mistake again. I'd rather hire the dude that has made that mistake because I know he's never going to make it again.
Yeah.
And and if he feels personal shame about that mistake, I'm never going to give him shame or that person's shame. But if they feel personal shame and embarrassment, I'm definitely going to hire them again.
Yeah.
Because they will never allow that happen again. So we are big on this. We also are big on the idea that we know that in the mixed studios is not your life. We know that you have family, we have other things, you have different job.
It's part of our core pillars. Literally, as people that have been hired by us know this through the training, which I always go through the 5 pillars. And the last pillar of it is family. We also understand that there's stages of burnout. We understand that, sometimes people just need time off. Just communicate what's going on. And we're actually very lenient. We're not a hardcore studio in the sense that where we require you to be here from this time to this time, 5 days a week. We let our interns choose their own schedule, but because of that, we also hold you up to your own expectation. You set your own schedule. We did not set it for you.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
that's kind of the magic of this place. You know, we will try to give as much opportunity and leeway as we possibly can. We just ask for that sense of kimochi, right?
Kimochi, yeah, that feeling there. But I will also say that, like, we also say you don't owe us anything, we don't owe you anything. Stick around for as much as you want. I believe in mutual selfish benefit. So, for example, if you feel like there's something that you can gain from being at the studio, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to use you in a way that I feel like I could gain from the studio. The studio can gain from you. So it's going to be like mutual selfish interest that is going to keep us together. And I'm going to continue to push that. Another thing as well is that I'm going to call out studio owners and other studios and say that this is where you're probably messing up. As we were talking earlier about interns messing up, and I was calling them out and saying, know your place.
There's
now I'm calling out
studios that are fucking up.
Yeah, I'm now going to call out studios and say, know your place.
Yeah.
Know your place, studios. If you need to start, some studios need to start paying position. Like, there are some studios that are getting people to engineer and not paying them. They're making money and charging extra for engineering, but they're not paying their engineer because the engineer's an intern. That is wild to me.
If you're offering an internship and expecting people to show up on time, on schedule, every time, but literally you're just gonna berate them the whole time they're there, just talk shit the whole time, make them feel like shit, and be like, know your employees, blah blah blah. Trust me, I've watched it happen, I've experienced it, and I still to this day could never find myself in that same mentality.
That's crazy.
I don't understand this. Why would they stay? Why, honestly speaking, like, let's put it this way: there's Stockholm syndrome, and then there's being a douche.
No, there's
there's a lot of people that just kind of use their position in a way that's like, hey, I'm gonna degrade you the whole time.
This is why it's important to learn how to be assertive, so you can say, no, I'm not dealing with this stuff. But at the same time, like, you said Stockholm syndrome. That's funny. But also, like, just people get guilted into doing things, and they're so unassertive that they're unable to say. Their guilt overrides their natural.
Now, could you imagine that this is happening in a studio that, once again, if you're not offering opportunity, nor do you really have opportunity to give, why are you treating them this way? This is the unfortunate truth of some locations, you know, and I say some locations because not all studios are like this. There's so many studios that I've found that are so awesome that, like, I wish I was there, you know? Yeah. But there are, you know, some pretty nightmarish locations that we've kind of heard about, and I've experienced them. I grew up out here in LA. You know, I wanted to be an intern for certain people and gone in only to, you know, I hate, like, I don't want to describe it as a bad experience because the experience is whatever you make of it. But there are some people who I would not trust around kids. Not because of weirdness, just like, yo, if this is how you treat an adult, like I can't even imagine how you'd raise your own kid. Like, how do you talk to your own kids?
Oh, that's so funny. That's funny. Oh, man, that was...
yeah, it's like, I'm just saying.
You've been touching adults really weird. I'm afraid you're going to touch... No, but for real, though, that's true, though.
Yeah, like, there's some pretty rough spots that you can intern for, at which point, to be honest, if you're in one of those rough spots where it's like, oh no, like, nobody cares about you, like, you'll one day get a chance, and it's been 6 months and there is no chance, and all you do is talk shit to them the whole time, why would they stay? If your complaint is that, you know, I can't find a single good intern, you know, like I said, good people are hard to keep around because they tend to move up and grow very quickly and efficiently. And if they've outgrown the situation that you offer, then yeah, they're going to move on. But if the situation that you offer is just not quality,
yeah,
whether it's small quality or large quality, it's just, people will go to where they feel respected and welcomed. If they're not respected or welcomed there, then unfortunately, I'm sorry, why would they stay?
So I will say, though, that the situations that are especially bad are studios that don't have any of the 3 boxes that we talked about.
Yeah.
And then they still try to, quite frankly, manipulate interns to doing their bidding. And it's now just like their fake amount of clout, the fake opportunity. They're like, well, if you stick around for like one more week, then we'll probably put you in this session with this You know, you got to be real with yourself. These big studios, sometimes it's worth sometimes it's worth sticking around even through all the BS
Yeah,
of
take
not
some
getting
shit.
paid, because it's a freaking big studio where Post Malone goes in all the time, you know?
Yeah. Like if you had Beyonce walking through your door every day, then yeah, you're going to be especially nitpicky about the interns because like, yo, I don't want to lose this client over free labor.
So yeah, we're talking mostly about like you don't have to stay. You should find another internship if the studio that you have doesn't have any sort of that respect, that clout, that opportunity for growth, and you still stick around. That's something that you should reevaluate and see if that's worth it for you. That being said, again, I'm calling out all studio owners here, especially if you are a big studio and doing this. Interns, dude, like, again, people need to remember that they're not just scum that you throw underneath the rug or underneath the couch. You don't just sweep them under the rug. The best way to have to build quality interns, to find quality interns, and to build a business, to hire employees that you make money off of later, you need to have successful programs that are catered for that. Often these big companies outside of the music industry have entire salaried positions for intern management. And all they do is to make sure the interns have a great experience, because the interns is a great way to, it's like a really long interview.
Can you imagine like a tech company that didn't have an internship?
Well, yeah. Well, entry level stuff. But that being said, I mean, think about this though. But this is how like a lot of people get hired is through internship, which is typically paid if it's a paid internship, minimum wage or something like that. Very, very little money, but and then it turns into a salaried position after they graduate college or something like that. But anyway, if you in the music studio world, what we do is it's basically a really long job interview. If you perform really well with your studio, if you perform really well as an intern, then we know for a fact that we have the confidence to now allow you to step into sessions to take over and gain some responsibility. I do not know. In fact, I cannot think of, and we've tried to do this actively a few times, and even on the spot right now, I cannot actively think of a better, more practical way to qualify interns to see if they can do paid positions, because resumes don't do it in this industry.
They really don't.
Resumes do not tell you how you interact with people. Resumes do not tell you your EQ intelligence. They do not tell you if you are a complaining person. I have to see work, and pragmatically, we're talking practically in the music industry, this is one of the only ways, this is your resume, is your work ethic. So think about it like that, and I think this is a great way to end the episode here, because we can keep going on. We're going to rant. We're going to keep ranting. And we really, really hope that as you listen to this episode, you felt inspired. If you're already working at a studio right now, that you feel inspired to work harder, figure out ways that you can build leverage by giving more value, right? If you're the problem solver, we want to keep you. Dude, and the best thing that you can do as like a lowly intern is to do such a damn good job that the idea of you leaving
is damaging to the company.
That's the best. That's the only way you can build leverage from that position.
This is why I'm always telling people that are problem solvers tend to do better, because if the problem is, like in my case, I need more engineers. If you were to prove and do the mock tests and do everything, and you can show me that you can engineer, I'll give you opportunity all day long. You just solved one of my problems. Thank you. If we have a studio and we're looking for ways to actually get more clients, and you say, hey, I have an idea for marketing and posting around this kind of place, the studio's not going to want to get rid of you. You just help them make more money. They will give you money to keep getting them money. This is why like commissions and all that kind of stuff exists in different businesses. And even in our studio, we tell our staff like, hey, if you bring in a new client that we haven't worked in before, and we'll give you a commission. That's kind of the funny thing. A problem solver is the one that we always want to keep. As you progress, stay in touch with the people that you want to be working with, And this is actually goes into just music industry in general. This is unfortunately the culture due to the lack of, there's not as much money in the music industry as the film industry or as the tech industry, right? Mm-hmm. So not saying that you can't make money. I'm not trying to discourage people from trying to make money. But
I'm trying to explain why this culture exists and why it's probably going to continue existing no matter how bad and unfortunate it is the idea of if you are a new artist and you're trying to get signed by a label, the label has all of the leverage.
Yeah.
You're going to have to sign a bad deal where you keep none of the money, you keep none of it, whatever, very little of it. You're going to have to sign a bad deal and still outperform everyone's expectations in order to build the leverage to sign a better deal the second time.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate truth. So people that are finding lawyers not willing to be screwed over on the first contract, the fact of the matter is, and we've talked about this because we have an artist program at the studio, if you hold where we basically record people's music for free, and here's the deal. If there's any struggle to communicate with you, if there's any struggle working with you, or if we even get the inkling that you just don't like working with us, then we're
totally
just gonna,
cool.
That's cool. We're going to scrap you and move on to the next person.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the situation
No hard
is
feelings.
that. No hard feelings.
Yeah.
The only hard feelings is from the artist because they feel like they were ditched and not taken care of. No, we don't care about you because unfortunately talent is extremely abundant, or fortunately a talent is extremely abundant.
But
and I
talent
can
is
find
the
someone
only
in
reason
this
that it
live
works.
stream. I can find a listener from this podcast that is significantly more talented than you, that is willing to work significantly harder than you are.
I hate to say, but shout out to Machi and Ian, 12 Feet Tall, who did start off as people that listen to the podcast, moved to California, interned for us. Their music's fucking amazing. Their music's great. Literally exactly what you said is true. And I bet you there's tons of listeners on this podcast that make significantly better music than some of the people we've considered. But if everybody
Talent
is
is
willing
too
to see,
abundant.
yeah,
Talent is
if
too
everybody
abundant.
can see eye to eye, everything moves smoother.
So unfortunately, the fact of the industry is sometimes the way to build leverage is to be taken advantage of. And it's really, really unfortunate. And obviously, we're not talking about situations of abuse and power control
Fuck
and
that
anything
shit.
sexual, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. But we are talking about if you really don't like cleaning the toilets, sometimes you have to clean that toilet and you have to do a fucking good job cleaning that toilet
yeah.
in order to get the next job.
Putting the sodas away, make sure all the labels are facing forward.
There you go.
Presentability is a thing.
Yeah, going that extra 5 to 10% is a huge, shows your character, and especially if you can do it over the course of a year.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it won't take that long. But the point is, if you have the mentality where you're not, because a lot of people, this is another problem too, a lot of people are able to hyper focus, and for 3 weeks they're the best intern you've ever met.
And then
but then they
suddenly-
drop off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And that's also not the type of person that we want. We want someone that is sustainable, someone that stays focused longer. Instead of someone having the best intern for 3 weeks, we'd rather have a slightly lesser intern that stays for a year.
Yeah, and the
That's
funny thing
consistent.
is, like, we see this all the time where we have, like you said, very successful starts, and then they kind of like have this downward trajectory because they're trying to put in the same amount of time and effort and everything. And you know, the funny thing is, like, I understand at the start you're excited, you're motivated, you're moving. Then you start slowing down because maybe you're a little tired, you're burning out maybe a tiny bit, whatever. That also just means that instead of tall tale signs of like a good intern and somebody we want to hire, you know, in the future, like, we want to see, hey, if you're burning out, if you feel like you're being overworked or something, let us know. You got to communicate. But if you don't know and just drop off the face of the earth, you never know if we could have modified and created better opportunity.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult because, honestly, yeah, you just got to think about all this stuff. And we're going to end this episode here. Thank you so much for watching. Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Boom.
It looks like the stream cut out for just a moment there.
No, it's all good. I left my water bottle in the other room. I hydrated with coffee, which is not hydrating.
Actually, let me get some coffee as well. I can tell that my mind is not functioning to the same level it typically is.
Great episode. Thank you, Crossbone T. Just out of curiosity, do you skate and do you use crossbones? Yeah. And even remotely through the app you told me about. Dude, Urban, yes, we do. And yeah, it's been pretty busy lately. Now to try and motivate myself to go live for a change, right? Oh, no joke, Urban. I don't know if you're still in the chat, but I just like picked up this massive project. Really, really glad to have taken it. No and no Lou. Aw. But it's kind of funny. We definitely had to schedule it, Urban. We've been trying for a while, but then it's like we talk and then we don't talk. But yeah, man, just literally message me, let me know what's going on. We'll see if I know how to use this magic mouse. Let me see if I can scroll through the chat a little bit, maybe. Yes, no. I don't think I know how. There we go. I learned how to do something. So can we speak on the Zaza? Dami, I hate to say, but what is the Zaza? I don't know what the Zaza is. What up, cuties? Aw. Let me see. Boom, boom. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, guys. It's been a really cool time in the studio. I don't know how many of you guys are actively in music, but we are officially out of the slow season. We are now getting into the heavy season. And you know, we're about to get Studio B back into motion, so we're going to be having a really cool opportunity to actually book studio time at In The Mix for like really dirt cheap. And you know, it's kind of a big deal because like we actually haven't put Studio B on the booking list in such a long time that it's going to be pretty interesting, like, you know, what we do with the room. It's almost like getting to refit the room again for the first time in a while. But yeah, honestly, like it's going to be pretty interesting. I can't wait.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the next episode. I think we got a little bit around, but I think we were able to
get back.
No. We were able to. We kind of did a lot of ranting. But one of the things that we were able to do is we were able to.
Obscure Asian. That's Machi.
This man is jacking $5 a month from me.
This man is jacking.
Thanks.
There's Machi. Shout out to Machi. That's actually Obscure Machi.
Hey, so we need to interview Machi about what it was like meeting his heroes, huh?
I'm sure it was terrible at this point. I'm sorry, Machi, to let you down. I'm sorry.
Love you, DK. Love the stream.
Aww.
Liar.
How cute.
Liar.
Oh,
that was in a
subscriber only chat.
That was an obligatory. That was
called being a kiss ass.
Yeah. Brown nosing sons of. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the next episode here. Oh, let me stop the recording. Oops.
I heard the convo already. Can't take it back. What are the topics we might poach some for the home studio heroes? Let me see.
Nah.
Actually, I got a good one. Home studio heroes. How has it been now that you have access to equipment versus recording from home? You know, what has your experience been now that you work in a studio that has a Tube Tech, that has a 1073, the APIs, the Chandler and everything?
Do you want to do
has it stopped you from believing that you can get quality from home, or has it, you know, further, I guess, worsen the situation? Do you feel like you now officially have to buy gear because you heard the gear?
We should talk about business differences between working on a commercial space versus a personal space.
Yeah.
And how that changes business.
Yeah, we can actually talk about from our progression
would that
from
be a
working
good
from
episode?
home to working from the studio.
Or why you might want to
Open the studio.
Yeah, open a studio commercial location. Is that a topic that interests y'all? Another option is we can just read the manual of.
We can read the studio policies.
No. Yeah.
As an artist, I feel like I'm able to be creative at home more. Yeah, I totally see that.
That's interesting because I know most of the reason why people book studios is for the vibe, and they feel like they can get creative more with the vibe of the studio, or like just getting outside of home.
I'll be honest. If I know people are on the other side of the wall.
What was the topic idea that he says? Great topic idea about?
Oh, it was our initial idea of like working from home versus getting a commercial spot.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow, great topic idea, Lou. There you go. But yeah, Machi, I think you guys should talk about that because I'm curious from a standpoint of like, I've bought a ton, but I know you and Narig haven't really taken like the deep dive and investment of like major pieces like the Eden or the Tube Tech and all that, and like what your views are on that from your perspective. Like, I say this all the time, I've kind of lost perspective from a certain stage of my career at this point, because that stage not necessarily was so far away, but my mentality behind certain things has molded into something else now, and so I can't think of it the same way I used to. And I think that's something I'd love to hear your guys' perspective on.
Or we could just read the manuals for another legacy product like 1176.
We did that. We did that. We did 1176, LA2A 670. We haven't done much. Yeah, we did the Poltec. We haven't.
SSL G-Bus.
Ew.
Or the history of the SSL. What do you mean, ew?
Ew. It wasn't ew.
Ooh. More like of interest. Piques your interest. API 2500. That'd be a good one.
Actually, yeah. Feed forward versus feedback design, and why the API 2500 was very, influential because of this optional.
Ooh, the distressor, because Kive just released through Plugin Alliance.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. We can do the distressor and why the distressor was such a utility piece in every studio, and now companies are emulating it left and right, which is something we didn't really see before in previous years. Like right now, I think in the last like 3 years, there's been a massive distressor boom in emulations.
Yeah, Slate
has theirs. UA, Kive,
UAD.
Empirical Labs has their own, the Arouser.
Well, they're the ones that made it.
Well, exactly, but it's still an emulation nonetheless. Yeah, there's about like 5 emulations on the market, not counting like all the other ones that already exist. No SSL slander. Let me see.
All right, let's do a little vote. We're gonna do a 30-second poll. Let me figure out.
I'm gonna learn how to do a poll. Watching DK create a poll.
Hold on, I actually don't know how to do a poll. Hold on, wait a second. No, that's raid. Manage prediction. Oh, here we go. Manage poll. Create new poll. What do we say? Describing outboard gear. What do we call it?
Oh, informative gear episode.
There you go. Informative gear episode.
Murder mystery porno. Just kidding. Home studio versus commercial. Taco versus burger. Grilled cheese. Oh.
We're
I got one.
other.
I got one for you.
1 minute. Start poll. Go for it.
Watch taco versus grilled cheese win.
The poll is set. Next podcast episode, what are you voting for? Informative gear episode or location episode? All right, well, that was really easy.
Yeah.
We're just going to go for the home studio episode.
The people have spoken.
I'm voting myself as well.
I hate that this song is so catchy and influential in my life.
All right, I'm going to end it. That's good enough.
Report poll.
How do I end the poll? Is there any way to end the poll?
That's what.
I don't know how to end the poll.
I was going to say that's what she said, but it's just so
I'll just
bad.
end it. I'll just end it. There it is. I figured it out. All right, home studio versus commercial. Let's get into it.
All right.
By the way, they barely hear it, so they're mostly hearing you singing. Also, I think the background music is slightly off time.
Oh, so I'm just like over here blurring.
And they probably don't hear it that much, to be honest.
All right, well, if anybody wants to play Smash, maybe... Oh, fuck, I can't go live yet. I still have to update my computer.
Yeah, I did get rid of the multiple votes option because I knew you're going to spam it. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to record this next episode Here it is, where Pro Tools is recording, and now OBS is recording. Here it is.
Obese.
Okay, here it is. Hello and welcome back to the Mix of Music Podcast. I'm your host, DK, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host. Let's get jiggy with it, Lou.
You know what? Let's
Let's get jiggy with it, Lou.
Let's get jiggy with it.
Let's get jiggy with it, comma, Lou. All right. So you know the importance of commas in written language is just so funny to me.
You know, my favorite update on Apple's iPhone products is Siri now automatically punctuates everything for you. Which I've noticed a lot of people's messaging has suddenly become a lot more readable and less confusing when there's like in previous messages they've sent me no commas or periods, where it's just one long sentence and you just kind of have to understand.
It'd be crazy sometimes.
Thank you, Apple, for finding a solution.
I love it when like a comma totally changes the meaning of things.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of an example right now, but like so for example, like don't touch, comma, children is saying don't touch, children. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Talking to the child, don't touch children, but then no comma, don't touch children is
it's
very
like,
different.
That's extremely
very different. Importance of a comma. Sorry, that took a second for me to think of. But don't touch children. So like I have to tell my kids, don't touch, comma, children. My children, proper noun or you know, a noun right there. Yeah. So
please always send that to me with a comma, please.
Lou has some of the most cursed voice to text messages I've ever received.
That's a message from Machi, and that's absolutely true.
That's true. It's crazy because the voice to text is actually grabbing data from your previous texts and search results.
Oh no.
Yeah, and
yeah, no joke. I think Siri has learned a lot about Pokemon in the recent months, because I noticed I went on eBay and I typed in the letters UMB and it spelled Umbreon, which is not in the English dictionary. And I was like, oh great, it now will autocorrect me on Pokemon.
There you go.
Great.
So on that note, let's get into today's episode. We're going to talk about the difference, why you may or may not want to invest in a commercial location if you've been working from home, what the value of booking a studio is.
Or why you might want to just go home.
Yeah, why you might want to stay home. And we're not really arguing towards one or the other. I think that we're going to explore some ideas and reasonings why one might be better for you. Again, the purpose of this episode is to help you figure out a way to become more efficient, become a better artist, to be more productive, and potentially earn more money.
And to be honest, I kind of like this idea because one thing I'm just realizing right now is, DK, we're in your home working. It evidently works. And I have an office for very obvious reasons to us as to why I don't like taking work home. You know, but this is actually...
Also just pragmatic too, like practical. Like,
yeah.
I save hundreds of dollars, potentially $1,000.
Oh my God, yes. And I even thought about it to myself the other day when we were talking. I'm like, you know, I might want to take this home, but I'm like, but it doesn't make sense to in my case.
Yeah, like in your case, there's no place to put the stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so let's kind of get into this episode because I feel like this is actually like just... especially for anybody, whether you're an intern for a studio and you're like, I can't wait to have my own place, like we might shed some light as to why you may not want one.
And some things that you need to consider, for example, like zoning laws.
Yeah, employment costs.
Yeah, so here it is real quick. So first, we're going to talk in the perspective of an engineer or a producer.
Yeah.
Engineer, producer, which is on one side of the industry versus an artist is another side of the industry there.
Oh, yeah.
An engineer producer is typically going to make money per hour or per project working for artists.
Oh my God.
Yes, and a lot of that marketing and word of mouth is going to be based off, one, the quality of work, and unfortunately, number two is going to be the vibe and the location. Oftentimes, especially in LA, the higher up you go, part of that is going to include privacy and parking.
Oh yeah,
which is usually not an issue if you're not in LA. You know?
Yeah. Sorry, LA folks.
Dude, I could in my Utah studio, we could literally park like 20 cars and it's just like no issues, and nobody would park on the street because it was just like right next to an empty lot.
Yeah.
It was great. I had my own standalone building, 2 rooms that are bigger than A,
Yeah.
and tall ceilings with an upstairs storage unit or auxiliary studio, and a hallway that connected everything.
For how much a month?
It was not including utilities. No, including utilities, about $900 to $1,000 a month.
Oh my God.
And it was its own standalone building.
I need to move to Utah.
It was great. And that was a very specific situation. I think I was very lucky.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful opportunity there. Here's the deal. Okay, if you are making money as a producer or an engineer, you need to consider whether or not the possibility of working from home versus working in a commercial location. I want to talk about the first thing that comes to mind. This is a big thing with my wife specifically. And this may be a big thing if you're married or have a girlfriend that lives with you, or if you have, obviously a family, or if you have roommates, if you don't live alone, any situation that you just don't live alone, this might affect you.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm wondering, my wife said every single time that she saw a stranger come to the front door and she didn't know what was going on, it freaked her out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like strangers will come to your house and walk into your house. And I don't know, if your roommates
Take
are
up
just
space.
always naked or something like that, that would be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, unfortunately, this was something very real I dealt with. I used to live in Alhambra and had like a 1-bedroom duplex, no shared walls, neighbors, like fully isolated unit kind of thing, which was crazy that, it was a standalone duplex essentially. But the isolation was actually so good in that space that I could actually operate. The downside is that walking through the front door, the bedroom door was directly to the right, and the bathroom could be accessed of one of 2 ways, through the bedroom or through the kitchen. Some people would think that the bathroom is the bedroom door, and they would reach for it, and I'd had to like rush to stop them before they opened the door. And maybe Anna's watching TV, working on her laptop or something. Like, there was always a sense of discomfort for both of us, where it was just kind of like,
I was gonna make a joke, but then I realized some people would take me seriously. So maybe I'll make it now with that emphasis.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, or Anna's like filming her OnlyFans content.
Yeah,
sitting there
exactly.
by
Seriously.
herself. Yeah,
By the way, guys, if you want to go to my OnlyFans, it's onlyfans.com/mastered by Lou. I kid you not. You can go look for it and send me a message once you're there.
This is true, and I do recommend you do that.
Yeah, it's actually really fun. And you might be able to find me on Feet Finder soon, too. For those of you not watching, me and DK just looked at each other and just started giggling. But no, in general, like real talk, like one of the most, I guess, considerable elements that you need to ask yourself if working from home is the right bet for you is, do you live alone, and what's your comfortability with strangers in your home? Like, obviously, if you can avoid people you don't know coming in your house, you would. But even if it is somebody you know, having people that are not from your home in your home while you're trying to work, it's really hard to like clock in, clock out mentally, because you're always at work, and whether the client is there or not. So it's also kind of hard for you to tell your client, even though they just left like an hour ago, it's like, hey, can you rebounce that for me? It's like, oh, I clocked out. It's like, it's really hard to say that.
Yeah, so number 1 is privacy. Number 2 is separation, which we can go into pretty deeply here.
Yeah.
This is emotional separation. Some people are unable to separate. Working from home is effective for some people because the situation or the environment does not affect their focus or their ability to focus.
Unfortunately, I'm not one of them.
And a lot of people, honestly, as well, and this is mostly people that are able to keep things clean. Like, the office is typically cleaner, more organized. There's other people working. Then this is one of the reasons why in this room, no kids allowed in this room. And it has to be clean for me, or else I'm unable to focus. And clean enough, at the very least.
Yeah.
Where the living room, especially with the kids, is just totally chaotic. If I tried to work there, it's just like not going to happen.
Yeah.
So privacy. But at the same time, I've also learned that I'm cool as long as there's a door that separates me and my family. I actually prefer that because I'm such a super family man. So I love to take like 5 to 10 minute breaks, just kiss my kids and come back to work. I'm cool with that, and I can stay effective that way. But I do remember before, when there wasn't as much separation, taking the time to sacrifice 5 to 20 minute commute or whatever to get to the studio. I'm going to be there, be more dedicated, focused. Nobody's going to bother me. And that's like, there's an actual psychological thing happening where you dedicate environments to different things. So if there's a way that you can do that now, working at home here is very practical. I save a lot of money. I have the space to do so. But I know that even if people had those resources, it's still not really feasible. I also want to recognize that I'm just a mixer. People don't come to my house to record vocals. And the only times clients ever come over are people that I've known for a while. And they only step in just for a moment while I'm here. They never, so it's like, and like,
even
they know
then,
my
like
wife.
we tend to just go to the studio for like people we don't really know.
Yeah. So like first time clients, typically what I do is then I use the commercial studio to book our first client together.
Yeah.
Because I've never met the dude. I don't know him. I don't know on them knowing where I live.
Exactly.
You know, so that's kind of what that is for. And to be fair, we are in a great situation. Well, you have a personal commercial location and then we have the studio.
And we'll jump into my reasons why later.
I have a this is great because I have a hybrid situation where I have an office at home, which I actually prefer for my personal work.
Yep.
And then I also have access to a commercial location. So it's the balance there. The third thing that I want to go into is actually something that I wish didn't affect the operations as much, which is perception. And I don't want to say clout, but there is a psychological difference happening when a potential client sees you working from your home versus working from an office. For example, when I first started Cold House Studio, I had very little experience. I honestly didn't know what I was doing, but the fact that I had a location and that looked nice, that was commercial, and that I obviously spent a lot of money every month, not just every month, but a lot of money to build up to begin with. There was this immediate, even though I was only like 22, 23 years old, there was this immediate level of trust that these clients had for me where I was able to charge. When I went from home recording to the office, my income went like 3 times more, specifically because of the location. It looked like I knew what I was doing.
So it's kind of funny. You know, there's obviously cases like Tizio, we'll say, what's his name? Mike Tucci, his mastering engineer, who both work from home, and they're both very successful. But both of them also worked for other artists at other commercial locations and at their homes. You know, they were people that, you know, you went to the client or the client would come to a specific location. They never brought them home. Working from home and being able to work at this level only became a thing after their success. But you know, like in my situation, I can't work from home. It's virtually impossible in my current situation. Before it was a little more possible, but even then it was very uncomfortable. But it goes back to the whole idea of like, if you were to be in my shoes where you have a fiance, you guys are basically in like a studio space, right? Where is she supposed to go when there's a client? You know, it doesn't actually, you know, logistically make any sense to work from home, especially if you're kind of like me, where, you know, I didn't necessarily grow up in a ghetto or anything, but like I have a lot of friends who did things that you don't technically want to communicate they do. And because of this, you also know that some people, just knowing that something is not that far away and not that hard to get your hands on, you don't want them knowing where you live and where all this expensive stuff is. If you work from home, unfortunately, you know, the risk is if somebody were to break in to steal your stuff, you live there. They're breaking in where you're sleeping to steal your equipment. They probably don't want anything to do with you in that moment. They just want your equipment. If they broke into my studio, I'd feel way safer than if they broke into my home. Sometimes the separation is more out of safety for you and your family than it is for anything else, which is why, like DK said, not having somebody come to your house because you don't know them is the most logical thing you can think. Like, I don't know you. I don't necessarily feel safe or unsafe with you. It's just that I don't know you well enough to trust you knowing my address just yet. I don't want you around my kids, my wife, or anything. It's not a problem between us. It's just protocol at the end of the day. Now, in my case, that's not really the biggest issue for me. It's that, you know, in my place, I have my sister who has a newborn kid, and that kid needs to sleep all day and night and everything. So I can't necessarily just pick up a call and, you know, laugh out loud all the time. I can't have a client come in and listen to a mix and not want to turn the speakers up, all the kids trying to sleep. And I also have my other sister with a 2-year-old who's running around that always wants to be with their aunts and uncles and everything. And, you know, you want to give the kid attention. You don't want it knocking on the door while you're trying to work with the client, like, Louie, like, you know, it's unfortunately it's very distracting for me. And as a guy with, like, I don't want to call it severe, I'm sure people have worse ADHD than me, but mine's pretty bad. I need separation to focus. I need separation. I need nobody around me. One of the old rules I had with the interns was, when I'm working, please don't talk to me, because then I will stop doing my job. And if you stop me from making my money, you're officially stopping me from making money. So the funny thing is, I chose an office that was conveniently, you know, I didn't specifically look for this, but it was great that it was down the hall from the studio. So like, I have to, you know, take a moment. It's only 30 seconds, but that 30-second walk to the studio is enough for me to say, you know what, I need a mini fridge in my office with water, so I don't have to go to the studio, get water, see somebody playing Smash, and then end up wasting an hour or two playing Smash.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes that separation is so that you can focus more. And sometimes it's because you just don't want people in your house. You know, it's like you said, DK, some people will actually take you a little more seriously if you have a location. That is true. But my office, if you ask anybody that's been there, it's literally just covered in Funko Pops and Pokemon cards and just my mastering rig. And that's it. It's not aesthetic by any means. Like, it was built to work so I can work and not be distracted by anything. I chose all black panels so that when I dim the lights, it looks like all you can see is the screen. Like, I don't even see my aesthetic toys or anything, because even that would distract me while I'm working.
So what I don't want this episode to become is like a flex of us owning commercial locations or other.
If anything,
like that.
I think we're going to get to a point where we actually deter the idea of getting a commercial studio.
Yeah. And so this is where I want to bring it into play, is the idea of when is it not a good time. For example, if you are able to, like, for most people, a lot of people, being able to, you know, get a commercial location and pay rent for that commercial location is just not feasible. Mm-hmm. Or they're just not in a situation where they can see the total benefit from that at this moment. That could change.
Like, for instance, trying to open a studio right in slow season. You know, like, if you already have a hard time going through the slow season working from home. But it also
depends on the clientele. For example, if it's recording versus like mixing as well, that's going to be different.
Yeah.
If it's and what it is that you're doing. And slow season might be different for different parts of the industry and different parts of the world as well. Yeah. So we want to basically just recognize what's happening with you, your weaknesses, your strengths. Because at the end of the day, me having the studio here in my home, I've created a business where the expectation is that you don't come in. And if you do come in, it's because I'm kind, honestly.
Yeah.
We don't need to come in. I have a lot of systems in order to navigate around, you know.
Needing to come in, audio movers, Zoom.
And a lot of my clientele, it's normal.
Yeah.
And it's really chill. And, you know, putting it in perspective, I'm potentially saving hundreds. I'm definitely saving hundreds, but potentially saving thousands of dollars working here instead of something that is equal somewhere else.
Yeah, to be honest, if I could work from home, the hundreds of dollars a month that I pay could be paying for a nicer place.
So let's talk about this right now. This is interesting. So now let's do this is going to take some math here.
Sure.
But the amount of money, so let's say 3 times the amount. In a recording situation, I made close to 3 times the amount of money, maybe even more actually, when I got the commercial location the first time versus when I was recording from home.
Yeah.
As a mix engineer now, if I work from a commercial location as a mixer, I probably will not even double. I probably won't increase my income at all, if anything at all. In fact, there's a risk that it might go down because the commute would take longer.
Not only that, but your cost of operation would be much higher than it needs to be.
Exactly. So now we're going to talk about, the income versus expenses. So now let's talk about, now I'm spending however much money a month to upkeep and the utilities, the gasoline it takes to commute, parking fees if there are any. There's very little to gain. Now, there's also opportunity costs that I could be missing as well. For example, like if I have a commercial location, then it's easier to invite friends over, easier to invite random people over, which could be network opportunities that I lose if I work from home. But that being said, for me personally, at this point in my life, it would not be effective to have a commercial location if this is an option right now. And instead, we've put in clouds, we've put in tons of acoustic treatment in here. This room sounds fantastic for what we're doing. We have tons of bass traps in here as well. And I've created and maximized the potential of this space, and I'm very comfortable, and it would not help me to get a commercial location. That being said, if I was a recording engineer, it probably would. Now so it's kind of depending on what you want to do. So you have to think about income potential versus expenses, because at the end of the day, and we're not in a financial advice podcast, but I love to talk about finances, is the idea of, as much as you can, the thing that you need to the thing you need to lower the most is your overhead. Businesses die from too high of overhead. Control your income by controlling your expenses. So what you do is just lower the overhead. So if you do not need a commercial location, if it doesn't help your business, or if you cannot figure out a plan, and to be honest, a lot of people just try to jump into it, you should be able to build a premeditated business plan. And kind of make estimates, maybe even run some tests. You should already have clients that are paying. It's not one of those build it and they will come situations. It's based on if you already have the clients or not. So just be aware of that. As far as like emotionally speaking, we've talked about the emotional value of having a commercial location. We've talked about the value from a concentration focus factor about having a commercial location. But that being said, if you are working from home, which because of the pandemic, man, it just made it really possible, which is really dope.
Not only that, but it actually proved to a lot of people that you don't need a location, because a lot of locations shut down, which means like their operation just halted because it was reliant on the location versus reliant on the provider.
You know what's a really great in-between opportunity that I know of, and I know a lot of people in LA that do this, is that they have a separate location
for a feet finder.
No, they have a separate location on their property. So, for example, I know that like Warren Hewart, his studio is actually on his property, but it's a separate entrance. You know,
so does out here in LA. There's Woodshed Recording in Malibu. It's actually
there's a lot
house,
of studio,
but the driveway has its own entrance with a little walkway that goes down to the studio.
There you go.
And then the house is about like 100 feet away.
Yeah, there's a lot of studios. This is going to be a little bit more custom. Either you have to build it yourself, or it's just going to be very rare. Like if they're able to park and come around the back or something like that, that's going to be better. But that can get rid of a lot of tension as well from the family, keep privacy. I know a lot of studios like this where they're able to balance, separate. And that's a really great in between as well. So this episode is sponsored by the Mixing Music Podcast. If you're interested in getting more technical tips on how to improve your mixes, your mastering, your songwriting, your production, go to Mixing Music Podcast / exclusive to get access to not only our entire library of exclusive episodes up until this point, but get 2 new episodes every single week. That's right. Me and Braden, we host the exclusive episodes of the Mixing Music Podcast. You get 3 times the amount of episodes. On top of that, all of the episodes that we've recorded into the past, they're all ad-free. The exclusive episodes are ad-free, and it's just absolutely wonderful. If you're interested in that, go to mixingmusicpodcast.com / exclusive. Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of want to just put out tips out there for people who want to continue working from home, but want to be taken a little more seriously from home. If they do have people that they're trying to come over, for instance, like there are those who want to mix for people. They're starting out. Client doesn't really know them well enough, so they might want to sit in on a session. They may want to produce for a client and say, oh, but I want to be there as you produce it so I can kind of like communicate my interests and like the direction that I'm looking for. Cool. You know, there's going to be situations where paying for a studio to meet somebody there because you can't really trust them in your own home is not necessarily an option. and we all go through that, and that's totally okay. Me and DK are lucky in the sense that there's in the mix, but that's not everybody's situation. Some people have to pay for that separation every time they need that separation, and it gets expensive at first. One of the hidden benefits of me working from home for so long is that I didn't have overhead. I didn't have to have my gear in a separate room and then have my office separated. All that gear was just always there, but that's because I invested more in what I wanted to eventually be in a location. And that, if you don't have $2,000 overhead for a location per month, let's say that you just put $500 per month into investing into a piece of gear. Sure, gear doesn't have an ROI right away. But if you're looking to have a commercial studio eventually, why not just get the hard cost out of the way first instead of trying to pay the monthly and buy the hard cost at the same time? Sometimes you can actually grow into your space and just work from home for now. And part of that would be like buy yourself a nice desk, get yourself some nice acoustic panels, really pretty up the space. We've talked about this before on a previous episode where DK had mentioned he made more money at his studio shopping at IKEA than he did at Guitar Center. This is extremely true because half the time, if you do have to invite somebody over, you want it to be at least somewhat aesthetic. You want to have some nice lighting. So sometimes putting mood lights will help the environment feel a little more professional. Getting yourself a nice desk might make it feel a little more professional. Having, even if it's a cheap mic on a nicer stand, maybe with the headphones right next to it and this and that, there's ways to pretty up the space without having to go expensive with it, and you don't have to have a tube tech at home. I'll be 100% honest. Everybody that asked me about the tube tech, you don't have to have a tube
tech, period. But
yeah, seriously, I'd rather suggest you to a distressor all day long.
Yeah.
But the point is to say, like, if you don't necessarily have the ability to cover such an overhead right away, and you want to be taken a little more seriously, sometimes it's just a matter of prettying up your backdrop if you're the type to stream, right? If you stream, your backdrop matters a lot. For instance, DK got these white panels now. They used to be black, but it looks really aesthetic and white, and the lights actually shine nicely on them. He has his shoes right above it with the Supreme box. They're all very aesthetic choices to put as the background. He has the
off-white
rug. Yeah.
Virgil.
Like, all these things matter because we had a client named C, and she would come to the studio all the time. And I remember talking to her once, and I was like, yeah, we want to offer professionalism. We want to offer community. She's like, yeah, honestly, what sold me at first was the shoes on the rafters. I was like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, it wasn't the speakers. It wasn't the mic. It wasn't the tube tech or anything. She's like, I don't even know what any of that is. It was the Kanye Bapes that were on the rafters. So Kanye shoes made the studio money, not my tube tech.
Hold on. I want to be fair. Not just the Kanye shoes, the Kanye Bapestas. Okay.
There you go. But see, that's the point I want to make. If you feel like you can't be taken seriously from your own home, don't forget the importance of aesthetics and vibes, because once again, even if you had a tube tech, if you're a douchebag, I don't want to work with you. Like, even if you had Kanye Bapestas on the rafters, if you're a douchebag, I don't want to work with you. The point is
personality.
Yeah, but if your concern is that it's hard to be taken seriously because you're working from home, just understand one thing. I made way more money focusing on the experience of the client than I ever did focusing on what gear or desk I had. So anything that you want to invest into your space to make it feel a little more professional, I would suggest to go more in the aesthetic route and kind of like, I guess you could say, the experience. For instance, if they are the type of people that like tea, having a few tea options and maybe a water kettle available is nice, because then when they say, oh, would you like some tea? They're like, oh, sure. What do you have? And you just pull out maybe 2 or 3 options. Like, I got green tea, black tea, and throat coat for you. Singers love throat coat. These little things get you taken a little more seriously without, hey, don't make me coat your throat, DK. Jeez. What the But, point is, like, don't worry about getting a commercial location if the overhead is unmanageable right now, and don't doubt yourself because of it, because I kid you not, there are many studios out here that, they cover their overhead. Sure, that's great, but I bet you anything they'd make more money if they could lower the overhead. Not necessarily lose a location, just lowering their overhead would make them more money. So if you're at a starting point, don't focus so much on getting the location, because the location will triple your income unless you can prove it. Like if you don't have a clientele right now, they don't just suddenly appear. You know, usually it's word of mouth and like recommendations from friends. And yes, you're going to have to advertise, but you should start offering yourself as a professional in these advertisements before offering your location. Because if they only book you because of your location, the day that thing closes, your business is stopped.
That's true. So we're going to probably put a close to this. There's a few other things that I want to say. For example, it is the commercial versus physical location, or sorry, commercial location versus your home. It's not feasible for a lot of people, but at the same time, I do think that it is the right business move for a lot of people that are listening. Honestly, the location does make an effect. At the very least, like find somewhere where it's like month to month, really low risk that you something that you don't have to build into. And if you find something really cheap as well. Now, the idea, for example, you also have to be pretty confident. And I think that this is where you being
extremely confident.
Yeah, this is where you being like a risk taker is going to play. Because, for example, if the overhead of my Cold House studio in Utah, it was about $1,000 a month, right? Being in Utah, that was a lot of money. Yeah. Like not even my 2-bedroom apartment cost $1,000 a month. Yeah. You know, so that was pretty big risk. And then on top of that, out here in LA, we have about the same amount of space, but like 5 times the amount of overhead.
Yeah.
And it's quite crazy. So it's pretty stressful, but at the same time, with good planning, with good advertising, with good marketing, with good word of mouth, with great opportunity, with great focus, we're able to kind of make things work. That being said, there are some times where it's just not worth it. Sometimes, just play it smart. Use your head. But I do think that a lot of people that are listening right now that are trying to take that next step, I do think that a commercial location might be it. Yeah. And I would at least recommend that you consider that for going full time. Yeah. I have another specific example. My good friend Randy Slaw from Salt Lake City. I remember he was a composer. He's composes for metal music. Like
I think you introduced me to him.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. We go to the Grammys together, and he is a wonderful producer as well. I remember when he used to work from home, and then he quit his job and then invested in a commercial location, and he said that changed his life because the commercial location, something about it, either the stress of overhead forced him to work harder or something about it, or maybe it's just like the fact that it's in a commercial location. He said that his income increased by a multiple factor. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have to work his day job anymore. Yeah, which is crazy to me because now his overhead is much more, but he was able to find a location that was affordable enough, and he was able to monetize and figure it out. So good on him. Congratulations, Randy. So I think there's a lot of stories. It's extremely scary. But if you're able to plan ahead, if you have the experience, if you have the delusional confidence, I would at least try. Again, I think that's something to consider. That may be the next step for a lot of people. So on that note, we wish you the best. We hope that you can secure the bag.
Yeah. Secure that shit.
We hope that... Oh, we didn't even talk about from an artist perspective. I don't think...
As an artist, I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it's...
unless you're signed to a label and the label's covering that cost for you. Like, you could be reinvesting that money into your marketing, your video content. You could be reinvesting all that location cost to something else. And worst case scenario, let's say that you just can't work from home. That's okay. Don't go and get something crazy expensive. Maybe just do, for instance, like in the mix, we do residencies.
Even in that
like if you only work during the night because you have a day job as an artist, you're growing, you still don't have a full-time thing, then cool, do a residency and work during those times. But having a full-on location, if you aren't able to cover that with only, I would say, safely 25% of what you make as an artist, then you probably shouldn't do it.
So I will say that even if you can't focus from home, I would recommend that artists actually go through like whatever, exposure therapy, whatever. Yeah. I would recommend that you take the time to figure out a way that you can focus from home. Yeah. Because if you're the type of artist, and this is crazy because we own a studio, so I don't want to take money out of my own pocket here.
Yeah, seriously, we're literally saying, artists, go home.
Yeah, but like if you can figure out a way to get in the zone, to focus, to be able to pump out work for free using your own microphone, recording yourself without an engineer, then that will save you so much money, and it's going to be amazing. And to be honest, even recently Ariana Grande posted a video of her recording her own vocals from her own house in her own Pro Tools rig. It's a skill that must be learned eventually.
Yeah.
So I recommend that everybody goes through the process of learning how to do that.
Yeah.
That being said, it's okay. Sometimes you just want to get in a vibe. Sometimes you want to do a feature with another artist and you want to rent a studio. At that point, I think
you don't
it's
want
better
the
to rent.
other artists that you're doing a feature with to know where you live.
Yeah, so I'd rather pay less by only paying rent when I need to, like paying the studio rental fee when I need to, rather than committing to a monthly expense.
Yeah, because if you really think about it, even if you could afford it, right? Why not just take that money and reinvest it back into your songs? Like, you could record 20, 30 ideas from home and then be like, you know what? I really like these two. I feel like I could recut them better in a better spot with a better mic. That's great. But you definitely didn't feel that way about the other 28 ideas.
Yeah.
You know, so why spend that much overhead to just get rough ideas? Even at a label level, with major artists that I've worked with, I've talked to the executives and they'll be like, dude, like, I don't understand why they're spending all this money for you guys to go to these studios. Like, they're wasting the budget. They could record all these ideas from home and they're going to bring them to me anyways. And then I'm going to fly them out to Nashville to re-record them anyways. Why spend $2,000-$3,000 a day at these locations if we're going to have to recut it anyways?
Ooh, facts.
You know, so once again, focus on your final output. As far as the creative process, just be creative. And if you have a hard time being creative from home, like DK said, you know, sometimes it's about the ritual. Sometimes you need to call your ex and bitch them out before you can start recording.
Yeah, I'd recommend learning how to get into the zone to perform those rituals. That sounds terrifying. Get into the zone at home if you are an artist.
Oh, yeah.
That being said, when you're ready, we're here. When you're ready to, get that vibe going at a studio that you can only get at a commercial location, some people still want to rent a vehicle that they don't own.
Yeah, I would love to drive a Bentley even if it was for a day, but I wouldn't want to own a Bentley because that cost is astronomical.
Yeah. So if you, for whatever reason, you're going to a high school reunion just to rent a Bentley, I don't know, whatever reason you need to rent a Bentley for, we're here for you.
Yeah. Sometimes you just do it just to do it.
Yeah, we're literally comparing our studio to renting a Bentley, and I think that is.
I feel like it's fairly accurate.
Fairly accurate.
I feel, yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
In the mix, the Bentley of studios.
Cool. Okay, that is now our second episode for the day. We are done recording. Let's look through some of these questions. Mixed by Sue says, very grateful for your knowledge and experience. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening.
No worries.
Salute from France. What up?
What up, France? I love your baguettes. I do.
It is funny the way you said it.
I love your
also,
baguette.
any questions from the chat that we saw? It's tough trying to meet and facilitate new clients in a home environment. Not having a neutral studio space makes things different.
Difficult, yeah.
Difficult, my bad. And different. How can I structure my home studio so that it maintains a level of professionalism for clients? Yeah, aesthetics. Separation and aesthetics.
Yeah. Literally, I used to bring in label artists to my house and they would compliment the fact that they were treated better and sounded better at my house than some of the studios they were booking. And with that said, I was also able to charge more per hour because I didn't have overhead of a studio, which means that I was actually making more per hour because the overhead never changed once I got a location. I was still charging $50 an hour from my home because they were booking me and they knew that the royalty treatment with me was worth the $50 an hour. And then once I got the commercial location, people were paying my $50 an hour plus the location. And when they ask, oh, can we still record from your house though to cut costs? I'm like, no, you cannot. I don't have anything at home anymore.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point too. It's like a commercial location will force you to charge more.
Yeah.
It'll put you in between a rock and a hard place, which I don't think is always a bad thing.
It's not always a bad thing, but it's not always helpful if it's premature.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to end the stream for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to upload tomorrow's episode. Please make sure to visit my island if you play Animal Crossing and give me your stuff.
If you like Pokemon cards, definitely DM me. Send me your collection. I'd like to see it. Two really weird things to end on.
Give me your stuff because my son keeps stealing my stuff and then putting it in his house. It's like every time I decorate the island with something, he just grabs it and puts it in his house, so I can't put it back.
That's a nice shell. My shell.
Literally, that is one of the things he stole. I'm not lying to you.
I love
have
it.
To buy a new shell. All right. Actually, I didn't even end up buying a new shell. Anyway, we're going to end it with this.
Is that Vladimir Putin as the photo? Or who is that?
Performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you want to clap as we take you through this monkey rap. He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger, faster, and stronger too. He's the first member of the DK crew. DK, Donkey Kong. DK, Donkey Kong is here. Kong's got style, so listen up, dude. She can shrink in size to suit her mood. She's quick and nimble when she needs to be. She can go through the air and climb up trees. If you choose her, you'll not choose wrong. With a skip and a hop, she's one cool Kong. Donkey Kong. He has no style, he has no grace. This Kong has a funny face. He can handstand when he needs to and stretch his arms out just for you. Inflate himself just like a balloon. This crazy Kong just digs his tune. DK, Donkey Kong. DK, Donkey Kong is here. He's back again and about time too. And this time he's in the mood.